Oh,
There we go.
hello.
Hello.
Uh,
Okay,
okay, I would love to talk to you about the core of your mastery.
so
And
we're talking about the core of mastery. I
yeah.
would say that truth is probably the core of it for me. What resonates as truth, what feels like truth to me. The core. So, yes, to know oneself, but my particular mastery, like, someone else is a chef or somebody else does something else and they know food. My particular mastery is with resonance. It's knowing what something feels like. And I don't feel like that's the end of the story because it comes in a human, what's the word, like a human package that has doubts, that has failings. And it feels like when I can just be with what's true, it's like my happy place. And so that the feeling of truth, of resonance, like if somebody comes to me and says, which man is better for me, this one or this one? And it's really obvious. And it's just such a beautiful thing. It's not to make something wrong about the one that's not right for her, for example, but it's just being able to feel what feels true. But when I say that, I want to qualify it because it sounds like I just kind of live a life where, well, I know this is true and this is true and this is true. But it's less simple than that because when you tell someone the truth, most of the time they don't want to hear it. In a session, I'm very, very lucky that I found a place for it's almost like a defect in a way. I mean, it can be either very positive or very negative because when you know the truth, you have to be careful how you deliver it so that it can be heard and understood. You have to, and people very often don't want to hear the truth because unless they can feel love in it, it's unsafe to hear the truth. So I would say the truth is the core of what we're calling my mastery. And by my mastery, I feel like the word mastery is almost a funny word for it. Mastery is a funny word for mastery because things that we have mastery over are things that are easy for us. And so it doesn't necessarily feel like mastery. So I say it and I can, mastery. It feels a bit like that. So if I was describing mastery, but I couldn't use the word mastery, what would I call it? Wow, that's a good question. Hang on. It's like a surety, knowing the domain, knowing the territory. Like let's say a makeup artist would know how a face works. They would really just know how a face works. And for me, it's like I would define mastery as that which we know so well we don't even feel like we know it. Like somebody who walks on a path every day and they see the sea and the land and they would notice when new flowers were growing or new weeds were growing or when there was something different, something that's inherently known. I think it feels like that to me. I'm just trying to see, would that hold true for every situation? I think so. Something that is so well known that you know how to bend the rules. I'd say like when there's an area that we don't know so well, we kind of go by the book. How do I make a video? How do I do that? And we look it up and we kind of go, okay, engage with your audience. We kind of learn it in that kind of way. But when we have mastery of something, it just feels like we know it, but we know it really intimately, easily, effortlessly. I would say that mastery is what we know, but we really know it. Not just like we know it better than we know anything else, but we know it like it was our child or something. We just really know the subject. I think it's something you care about. I think it's something. I don't think it's a question of looking around going, what interests me enough to want to bother to have mastery over it. I think it's something that, like, say for you with your bags, it was perfection. It was, for me, it was less about bags or fashion or it was, can I do this? Can I make this magical thing happen? And it was the desire to, like, it's interesting with your bags, for example, that it's like you took something that tends to be square and you made it round. And it's like you kind of wanted to bend the rules. You literally were playing with the properties of matter, of material. Can something that is generally one shape be another shape. And for me, that's like, it's like an exploration. It's like, what do we, I'd say that rather than looking at what do we want to gain mastery over, that kind of feels a bit like having a dog that you train. It feels more like, it's much subtler than that. It's more like, what interests you? What what's a natural movement of interest? Like, say, for example, your interest at the moment in mastery. It's like there's a natural movement for you in it. It's like, it's really as if what you're really interested in, what moves you deeply, is perfection. And when I say perfection, I don't mean that actually in a kind of picky, this hair is in the wrong place. I don't mean that kind of perfection. I mean like the world of forms. I think it's Plato that talks about the world of forms, like how everything exists somewhere in the universe in its perfect version, its absolute perfect version, the perfect circle, the perfect smile, the perfect, you know, where things are exactly as they were meant to be, exactly. And I think this is what is behind your quest. And so it feels like it's wanting to know, it's almost like, it's as if the thing that moves you is almost like a disappointment in that which is not perfect. And if we add sacred into it, it probably starts to make even more sense to you. What we're calling perfection, how to bend the rules, how to do what hasn't been done before. It feels like that's a natural inquiry, a natural evolution within you. Not that you went, I know, I'll gain mastery over bags. It just feels like we get moved to something and then we go deeper and deeper into it. Like, I've often thought of this about, there was a particular footballer that my son played with, and he went on to play for England, and he became like famous and everything. And he was also called Jack, like my son. And I would notice, and this guy's world is, he's not doing so well anymore. This was like, it was 13 years ago or something like that, maybe 14, that they played together. And to be a male playing at that level is just extraordinary. There's so few that do it. So I was looking at this guy, this Jack. How did that happen for him? And what I saw is that there's like a buffet of life available to us, and we can like try a bit of this, try a bit of that, and that can be lovely. We try everything. There's balance to that. But with mastery, it's like you get better, a bit better, a bit better, a bit better. It's like you put all the energy that could have been used to be good at all different sports, to be average. Like, this guy could have been pretty good at any sport, I imagine. And instead he focused, and it's a focusing down, just getting a bit better each time. And all his energy went into that. And I noticed that when someone is brilliant at something, genius at something, their life is usually not balanced. And so what do we want to go for? Like, for example, if I'm really fixed on the truth, it's hard to have friends, because people are always going to, I remember having a really big argument with a friend of mine because she wouldn't get off the sofa. Like, we had a meeting and she had to get back to London for that meeting. And she was like, oh, can we, it was around Christmas time. And she was like, oh, can we do it on the phone? And I was like, no, come on, we had a plan. Come on, get your ass off that sofa, get moving. And not many people can handle being treated like that all the time, to be held to such a high standard. So if truth were my only, the focus on truth unbalances my life, is what I'm saying. And yet, it's such a fucking sweet nectar when it's felt that that is my orientation. It's like did I tell you my cousin died recently? Yeah, I mentioned on Anchored in Grace. Anyway, my cousin died recently, and her funeral, I kept calling it a wedding because it was amazing. It was just exactly the perfect funeral. There was, they spoke about her, and the person that they lovingly spoke about her, but she was really far from perfect, this woman. She was only 32, but she was very risky. She had attention deficit disorder. She was kind of crazy. But they spoke about her as she was. And so even if someone had walked into that funeral and they didn't know the person who died, they would have got a true sense of her. And it was just amazing to me, because I'd been to another funeral just a few days before that, and I didn't recognize the person that they were talking about, because, you know, in a funeral we say the good, you know. And with Samara, my cousin, it wasn't that they said the bad, it was just they told the truth about her. Not like, oh, she was rubbish at this, but they'd say, yeah, she had difficult relationships, but she would always come back again. She would get upset easily and forgive easily. It was talked about truly. And for me, it was just perfect. And my appreciation of this funeral, honestly, it's going to sustain me for like a year. I just think of the funeral and how strange to be so full-hearted for a funeral. Funeral's a sad event. And it was sad. It was really sad. I cried till my eyes were hugely puffy. But it was just as a funeral should be. There was nothing missing. And so my devotion to the truth can make the rest of my life frustrating, but when I'm met with the truth, it makes me so happy, so happy, wherever I find it. I guess it's like somebody who's like looking for gold, a gold, what's it called, when they would go to South Africa and try to find gold, and you day after day you don't find anything, and when you find something, you find the thing you're looking for. It's just like, hallelujah, I can die now, I'm happy, that kind of thing. And so I feel like the majority of people have more balance in their lives, and that kind of looks like if I look at my boyfriend's life, he likes his little job and he's got his friends he's working at the market and it suits him so well, and he's got his friends and he's loved by them and he loves them, and he makes one this and they make him that, and it's all very beautiful, and he comes home to me and he'll eat something nice and he's just like, oh my God, I love my life. And for me, it's beautiful to see him loving his life, but that wouldn't be enough. It just wouldn't be true enough. It wouldn't be deep enough. But I feel like we talk about mastery as if it's really a blessing, and I don't know if it is. I don't know, because it's like when you really know the light. For example, here's a good example. I love the light in Greece. I just love it. Since I first went to Greece, I was like, wow, the light is just incredible. And I love the pinky bluey light that's there. But coming back here, there's no light here. Like, I've got a really bright light, like a camera light, because it's so dark. Like when the image without the light on is fuzzy. It's that dark in my house, and it's middle of the day. It's because there's so many trees in the garden that there's no light coming in, and so I'm so saddened by the lack of light. And then I go into big dramas because I'm not really allowed to get the trees cut down, like cut back. It's not because the house is rented. So I'm asking the landlord to do it, and the landlord's not doing it, and so it becomes a whole thing. And in the meantime, I'm just so sad. Whereas somebody else doesn't even notice. Like a friend of mine who stayed here while I was away, she was like, I didn't notice it was particularly dark. How could you not notice? But she didn't. And then when she came around the other day, and she's like, oh, I see what you mean. It's not any darker than it was before, but I didn't notice. Whereas because it's so important to me, I notice. And so I think that when something like truth or perfection is important to us, we're often disappointed. And I think that the next step of even greater mastery is to not expect anybody else to deliver it to you. It's to be able to find it, to see it. Like in one of the recent Anchored in Grace calls, it was about the sacred, but about not expecting anybody else to recognize the sacred. It's not anybody else's job. Only if we choose to recognize it. When people look for a spiritual partner or something like that, it's like, yes, stop looking for somebody else to take you somewhere. Like, recognize the sacred yourself. So to reorientate towards being delighted when we do find it, rather than having the expectation that it should be everywhere. One of the things I would say is focus is necessary for mastery. Somebody that can't focus is not going to be able to have mastery.
Focus, yes, that's true. It's the question I really want to ask you. To know for yourself why, like, first of all, what is it? Like, what's the definition of it?
Yeah, no, I understand. So that you don't listen to somebody else's words. You don't take somebody else's experience as truth. For me, it's about resonance. I don't know if this is the subject of mastery, so let me just speak about it for myself. I would say that there needs to be a resonance. So today, Jade asked me to look at something I didn't want to look at, and I was very reluctant. But she was like, "Please," will you? She said, "I know I'm being indulgent, but please indulge me." I was like, "Don't want to know," and I did it anyway, and it made me feel so rough afterwards. It wasn't nice at all. So I knew that it wasn't going to feel good.
Uh-huh.
I could feel that it wasn't going to. It wasn't the right thing to do for me anyway. Maybe it was for her, but it's a resonance. You feel something, and it's in alignment or it's not in alignment. You know, like a gardener going about his garden, he would notice when a flower wasn't happy. He would feel it. It would feel out of tune. Or a musician. It's like when something feels in tune, I would say. But I'm saying that like from a musical perspective. But when something feels just, for me, it's when something feels just right. Like, you know, sometimes, like you'll see a dress in a shop window and you'll be like, oh my God, that will look amazing on me. Another time you could see a beautiful dress and you can appreciate the beauty of that dress, but it wouldn't suit you. And you know that because you know you have mastery over you. You know what your appearance in that sense. And I would say that for me, mastery feels like, for me, it's about resonance. Yeah, I mean, all the examples that are coming to me are all to do with other trades, like a painter or matching colors. It's like when something is just true. Like, for example, how different colors can be completely different colors, but they can have the same tone. It's like noticing things like that. It's noticing the subtle layers and when it's absolutely right. And for me, the mastery doesn't come in. The choosing of which shape bag you are going to make doesn't involve mastery. That involves what was the interest generated and which one has got the most life to it, which one is the most welcome in the world, which one has got the most life force. But for me, the mastery comes in, as I'm talking about it, when everyone told you, no, it can't be done. And you were like, it must be able to be done. I'm going to find a way it can be done. That's more what I'm pointing to. It's like, for me, when something's true, it becomes part of me. And then I say it, and when I know it, when I hear the truth, I feel it, it comes into me, and I can tell that story just as it was when I heard it. Like, I can't do it quite on the screen here because there's just a screen, but like that feeling of the question and the answer coming. And it's like when you're in it, it does something, and somebody else can then digest that, and it feels true to them or it doesn't feel true to them. And what I'm referring to about taking somebody else's word for it is a bit like when we follow a recipe. When we follow a recipe, it can be the most delicious meal, but we've gone, okay, 100 grams of this, 200 grams of that, and we're following somebody else's words, and it might taste beautiful, but it's not of us, and so we haven't added something to it. For me, that life can be like that when we're listening to somebody else's words. Like when we think, for example, that we should work 9 to 5, we should have a mortgage, we should have a boyfriend and 2.2 children. That's what society is dictating. It's not necessarily what's true for each individual. The point that I'm wanting to make is about when we use somebody else's words as if it was true without knowing it's true. My boyfriend would often do this. He less so now, but if he wanted to take me to a restaurant, say, he would take me to a restaurant and he would tell me it was going to be a really nice restaurant because so-and-so says it's really nice. And I'm like, but I don't even know if so-and-so's got the same taste as me, so I can't take their judgment. But he would go, it's a really nice restaurant because somebody said so. Or here's another example. I'm kind of getting there, humor me. I'm not that master that says it in few words. When I first met my boyfriend, he said that he thought it was really bad for a parent to sleep in the bed with their child. And I was like, why? And he said, because they might squash them, he had all the reasons. And I'm like, but you've not been a parent, so where are you getting this from? I think it's really important to sleep closely to your children when they're very young. Where are you getting this from? And he says, well, my dad said so. And I was like, well, where did your dad get it from? He read it in the paper. So what my boyfriend was saying as gospel, as truth, was that you should not sleep with your children because you might injure them. But his way that he had formulated that concept was from something his dad had read in the paper. Now, for me, there's no foundation to that. There's nothing solid to that. And for me, a parent who slept with my children, who wanted them right nearby me because I felt that that was really important for a living being, to be close to their mother, very, very important to them. It sounded like absolute bollocks what he was saying. But for him, it was like a notion that he'd heard, something he'd heard. The source, as far as he'd concerned, had been his father. So he believed it to be true because his father had said it, without any investigation, without any interest in the subject. And I think that people do that often. And it kind of comes to me under the same category of when we think we know somebody. Like, let's say our neighbour's an alcoholic, and we go, oh, she's an alcoholic. And she's dismissed. That's what she is. We don't know. We don't know her story. We don't know who this person is. We don't know what's brought her to this. We don't know how deeply she loves, how she feels, what's gone on in her life. We just put this kind of blanket judgment over. And for me, it comes from a similar place when we just believe what somebody else has said because we trust them, for example.
Does it mean that we never ever should listen to other voices?
We should always listen to other voices, but we should listen to what that voice does to us.
Oh.
So for example, when I read about how to make videos, let's say, and it tells me to speak to someone you love, or whatever it tells you to do, that's not really the way that I should be making videos. I should be making videos by not thinking about making videos, by just talking like I'm talking to you now. When you're learning to do something, you do it according to the book, according to the recipe. And then at some point, maybe you find your own way. And maybe trying to follow the recipe actually made things harder for you because it's like it's been invented already, so you don't invent it yourself. And then we would all have our natural way of making videos, of making dinner, of making a smoothie, of whatever it is we do. But unless we make it our own, you take somebody else's words and bastardize them, make them one's own, change them. Like you get a recipe and you add a little bit because you think that chili would be better than pepper, or whatever feels appropriate in that scenario. But it's not. I feel that we should never just do something blindly because we've listened to some words. If we hear some words and we go, oh my God, yes, of course that's what I should be doing, then that's different.
Does it mean that I'm not listening to any voices? Only I'm listening to resonance that those voices have.
Well, no, not exactly. It's like you're listening to all voices. And you're listening to all voices, but noticing what resonates. Just as when you go to a clothes shop, there's all clothes, but you only get the ones that suit you. Let me put it in terms of clothes, okay? Because I know you know clothing very well. Let's say you go to a clothes shop and you're trying something on, and the shop assistant says to you, that looks really beautiful on you. But for you, it doesn't look beautiful on you. There is nothing that she's going to say that's going to make you want to buy that dress, for example. If you don't feel good in it, if you're trying the dress on and you feel beautiful in it and she says you look beautiful in it, you'd be like, okay, I'm going to get it. But you had to have that resonance of it in the first place. And it wouldn't matter if there were 100 people around you telling you that was beautiful on you. And maybe you would buy it because 100 people said it was beautiful, but then you feel awkward in it, uncomfortable in it. And maybe it looks beautiful to other people, but it doesn't feel so good to wear. And you maybe wish that you didn't take their advice. Like I've got that where I went shopping with somebody years ago now, and everything that we bought on that shopping trip, I have never worn. Never. She's told me it looked good on me, blah, blah, but it didn't feel, there were probably clothes she likes that would suit her. But even when I was a kid, I never wanted to go shopping with my girlfriends because it was like, why is it relevant what they think this looks like on me? I need to feel good in it. And it's the same sort of thing with words. So it's when those words register as truth, they register as, yes, exactly. it touches something within you, then you do something with it. But you can listen to what everybody says. You can listen to the shop assistant telling you that this is a beautiful dress.
Mhm.
And let's say, for example, we elevate that to another level. And let's say it's Yves Saint Laurent himself telling you that you look beautiful in his dress, but it's scratchy and it doesn't feel comfortable to you. Then you might know it looks aesthetically beautiful, but doesn't make you want to wear it. When somebody says something that impacts you in some way,
Mhm.
then you need to look at it. You hear lots of words every day that
Mhm.
you don't care about.
Yeah.
And when something either irritates you immensely, it's like, no, I don't do that. You have a reaction to something, or it goes down like nectar
Uh-huh.
when it makes you go, yes, that's the way to put that's a good way of putting it. And it's when we don't take as fact what doesn't feel like truth to us. So what I'm saying basically is that we should listen to everybody, but just as you would feel about buying a dress, only you listen to people's advice, but you only listen, but you are the final authority. We know when something's true or not. And w- the trouble is that we doubt ourselves so much. And in areas that we know nothing about, of course, we're going to doubt ourselves. If someone's telling us how to build a house, how to how to do anything that we don't know how to do, we're just going to be like, okay, and what do I do next? And what do I do next? And how do I use the computer? And what do I do? You're just going to be like learning something. And for me, there's that level of learning something, but that's never going to have mastery in it. Never. And I think that's a really important point. When we, for example, I know quite a few teachers who run other people's courses. So they're teaching somebody else's material. And they might do it quite well, but it's never really going to be absolutely perfect unless they add their own essence to it.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's like say your own words, think your own thoughts, notice where things come from.
But
No,
even masters are those, I mean, you are constantly learning, right? Or
constantly,
exploring.
constantly. Yeah,
Why are they different, those two things?
that's a good question. I would say it's more like evolving.
Mhm.
Like I notice when I see people who've done a lot of courses, like sometimes I work with people who would be amazing practitioners just because of what they are. And they go, I've done past life regression and I've done hypnosis and I've done massage, and they tell me all the things they've done. I realize that they haven't mastered anything.
Mm.
And it feels like, um, when kids are learning and they're playing with water or they're doing something, they're learning its properties. But for them, they don't think they're learning. If you compare that to a child sat in school with a teacher explaining something and it's a formal learning situation, for me, there's far more mastery in the learning that's about exploring, that's led by desire, that doesn't feel like learning. Like when I'm learning something new, I never have the feeling like, oh, I want to go and learn about this. It's more like, oh, that's interesting, let me explore. It doesn't feel like, it feels like it's something I'm receiving when I'm learning something new. Like, say, for example, I don't even know if I would call it exactly learning. It is learning,
Mhm.
uh, but I would probably call it more evolving than
Mhm.
learning. And for example, as I said, recently I'm very interested in the sacred. What is the sacred? What feels sacred? And it's kind of been there all along, but it suddenly popped up with these words, the sacred, the form of the sacred. And it makes me recognize there's this movement that I've done for a long time. When I become aware of what's looking through my eyes, it's like everything feels nice to me when I can recognize what is seeing this. And the sacred feels like that. And it's like I've never called that the sacred. It's more like it's like the use of the word sacred. I'm kind of going back, going, oh, that feels like sacred. That feels like sacred. That feels like sacred. Oh, that doesn't so much. But it feels like it's not a mission to learn. It's not, I'm not sitting there with notebook. I'm not trying to remember how somebody else does it. I
Mm.
feel like if we want mastery, we have to find our own way. What you started off saying is this is about knowing yourself.
Mhm.
And I would say it's kind of like it's knowing yourself I would say it is feeling the resonance. For me, it's about feeling the resonance.
Mm-hmm.
Feeling that, and it has to do something. Words have to do something, not just feel like facts that I have to memorize. When there's something that feels like it just needs to be remembered, I suppose the way that I would put it is that everything works well when things are in the right place. And when a new piece of information comes in and it slots into the right place, it kind of enhances everything that was already there.
Mm-hmm.
And or it can make you defensive, guarded. No, I don't do that. You know, this kind of thing, which is also worth looking at, which is also a gift. But when it doesn't do anything, when the words don't do anything, and that might be because we're not ready to hear them. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with the words. But they just might not resonate with us. Quite often I feel that I'm talking about things and people don't understand them anyway.
Yeah. How do you feel? How do you feel?
Stupid.
Really?
Mm. Yeah, it's like the feeling of my voice kind of comes back to me. It's like if you're giving a talk and your voice is landing, you can feel that it sort of goes somewhere. And when I can hear my voice, it feels like it's coming back to me. I realize my words are not landing. But everything, absolutely everything has an energy to it. So in a way, my particular area is fascinating because it's kind of every area. We can talk about everything, but the areas where I feel stupid, like I feel stupid when my voice is coming back because I know that then I haven't said it right, it hasn't landed right, I need to find another way. So for example, you're giving a talk and you feel nothing coming back, you have to do something different because you can feel it.
Why is it important to know yourself, or to know for yourself, or maybe both?
Okay, so let me treat that as two questions.
Yes, please.
Okay. I feel that it's important to know oneself to have a solid reference point. It's that when we, let's say you go into a shop and you don't know yourself, you're going to be tempted by all the different things, all the different clothes, all the different sweeties, everything. But when you know yourself, you know what's going to suit, you know what's for you. When you know yourself, you know what's for you, and you don't have to chase after everything that's not for you.
Mm.
And for me, it gives you one solid reference point in a world where everything else is changing. When we know ourselves, it's the one constant. And of course, we're not exactly constant because our moods change, but there's something within us that's constant. And so the colors that suit us, the light that suits us, the thoughts that suit us, we can come, when we know ourselves, then life can orientate itself, our lives can orientate around us. For me, it feels important to that. And what was the other way that you put the question?
To know for yourself, to have that ability to.
So to me, they're very, very different things. So to know oneself is the constancy of self. So every year I try olives. I don't like olives, but I've got an olive grove. So it seems like I like olive oil, but not olives. But every year I try olives to see, do I like them yet? But I'm the constant that doesn't like them. And maybe that's going to change, but I'm willing to find out. But it's to have one stable place within us, something constant. Yeah, something that's always there. Like if we're going off on a journey and we don't know what's going to happen, we know we're going to be there. We can trust that we're going to be there. And it feels to me like wars and all these things that we see in the world, so much of them, a lot of it is for money, of course, for money, but there's such a human quality in everything. A little human thing. Some of the great inventions that have been made, they were all made by little humans in their garage or something like that, And so for me, there's that, like the mastery just on a simple little human level. Someone who's really good at making a cup of tea, something like that. These, like the butterfly effect, it can just literally change the face of the world. Something tiny, something tiny. So let me come back to, I was speaking to know it for ourselves. Yeah, for me, that's about what I said before. It's just how something resonates with us, how it lands within us. That when we really know something and it becomes part of us, it's like we're speaking about it from the inside of it. from the inside. When we're talking about something we don't know, we're speaking about it from the outside. Weren't you going to say that there were two different versions of mastery? Well, that was the highest. There was another one.
So there are two things. First is natural, that doesn't need 10,000 of hours, the way I perceive it somehow, right? So I just see it, right? It's just ease, like, right?
Mm.
I mean, the tree, I don't know, like sort of divine moments that I can recognize. And another way to put it is that substance, this skills, knowledge, work on it. I mean, I don't know, something else that is around it.
Yeah,
And,
I get it. I can feel it completely.
hmm.
I would say it like you need to have a natural ability with sport. You need to be naturally athletic, and then you would look at what is your most preferred sport, for example. Let's say football, just because I know more about football. And then you go to football, and then you start playing football, and then you hone your skills in football. And some of it is learned. Some of it is someone shows you how to do a technique, and you use that, but you make it your own. You expand on it. You use everything like a jump start, on a car when the battery is dead and you give it a jump start. You treat all new things like a jump start for your system.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I would. Like a tree doesn't need to be told how to become a tree. It doesn't need to learn how to be a tree. It just is what it is. But if it wanted to be a particular shape tree, then it would need to be like like if you have beautiful hair, but then you style it. It's like it's taking what you've got and making the most of it, or using it in its divine way. Well, my values, I have to say, have changed over time.
Yeah.
I would say that truth has always been a foundation of what's important to me, but even my relationship to that has changed. For example, when I was young, it felt just very obvious to me, like when people were lying or something wasn't correct. And as I've got older, it feels like I would be frustrated with that. I would be really annoyed, like, why can't they cook this properly? Why can't this be done as it's supposed to be done? And now I'm softer in relation to my values. I feel them as my values. I feel them as, this is what's important to me, but it doesn't have to be important to you. It doesn't have. It's more like I have to take care of what's important to me, and it doesn't really matter what the outcome of it is. It doesn't matter whether somebody else agrees. And so I've got more. It's like I've brought my values closer in. I'm not demanding that the world holds the same values. What's valuable to me is truth. I think is that the only thing? I'm a bit shocked to find that that's probably the only thing. And when I say truth, I don't mean someone not lying. I don't mean that. I mean the truth of what we are. Like what looks through my eyes is what's important to me. And presence is important to me. And all of love is important to me. But what's all these subjects for me are kind of the things that are important to me, the things that I value, are kind of explorations in a sense. So if love is important to me, I'm going to explore love. If truth is important to me, I'm going to explore truth. But it's like a personal orientation. I'm no longer demanding that the world meets my need. I'm not complaining when somebody doesn't get the truth. It's gone so dark where you are.
We're having a storm.
Really?
Like a real one. Don't know if you can see.
Hang on, let me put my glasses on. Keep it there.
I can bring you close. I don't know if you can see, but it's like. One sec.
Oh, Anya!
Okay.
Are you okay? That was spectacular. Wow, that's so dramatic. So was the floor wet? Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm okay.
That was spectacular. It was like in a movie. Breakfast at Tiffany's. I feel like truth, love, and presence are kind of pointing to the same thing. And I suppose what I would say is truly important to me is that, so I'm calling it the sacred, but it's not exactly the right word for it because nothing is the right word for it. It's that which makes you go, oh, like for me at the moment, I can be in the shower and I see the way that the water is coming out of the shower and the light on the water. I'm just, oh my God. And it just like takes my breath away. It's so beautiful. Or the light shining in the trees, or when my boyfriend comes home from working and he's so happy to be home and he's so happy to have been to work as well. It's just like there's this quality um, that has no words, that we don't actually have a word for. The sacred, but when we say sacred, it sounds a bit stuffy. It sounds a bit like pray the sacred. It's not light. It's not just sacred. It doesn't have that kind of quality to it. And so I feel like I don't have a word to describe the thing that is the most important. But on top of that, I would put the word sacred, truth, and presence. And it's what's just underneath those three things is the most important thing for me.
I really want to understand why like the values, right? So why those three things have become important to you?
Yeah, it's like the heart has to know. Okay, why are those things important to me? So presence is important to me because it's what it feels like we each uniquely bring our presence. It feels like we all have a presence, and if we don't bring it, we're denying ourselves, we're denying life. And with presence, so much can transform. Sometimes, when somebody asks you a question and they listen to your answer with presence, it can change everything for you.
Yeah.
And so I feel like it's for me, bringing our presence is the least we can do. It's like to really truly honor a situation, to be true with a situation, is without our presence, it's like we haven't shown up. So if you go to Italy and you go to see these guys there and you go to say your piece, but you don't bring your presence with you, then why bother? What's the point of showing up? If I'm going to go and do something without my presence, what's the point? I might as well have not bothered. For me, presence is the minimum that I've got to offer. Then the next thing I would say, truth. Truth for me and love are a kind of resonance. There's a resonance to them where truth for me, really, it's really important. I feel it's really important to put across that when I say truth, I'm not talking about the opposite of a lie. That's really not what I mean. When I'm talking about truth, it's a kind of quality. Like, it's like that which cannot be denied. So if I talk about that in terms of the funeral that I went to, for example, the truth of it was, yes, they spoke about the real woman that died, but there wasn't like, everybody didn't wear black. There wasn't a mourning feeling. I kept calling it a wedding because it was so beautiful. And it felt like nothing was left out. Nothing was denied. Nothing was, oh, well, we don't talk about that. There wasn't that sort of feeling about it. And for me, when there's truth, then we're all at ease. It's like the capacity to just be naked and have everything accepted. And when we actually recognize the truth of what we are, of who we are, it helps us to recognize the truth of everything. We're not separate from everything. So we might find the truth within ourselves, we might find it in life, but it's the same thing. And for me, truth is very simple. So presence is also very simple. And the truth is very simple. It's not fancy, it's not complicated, it's not, well, is this true and is this true? It's not for the head. It just is. It's almost like that which cannot be divided. Like you get prime numbers, a number that can only be divided by itself. Do you know what I mean?
Not really, but I can look it up.
Well, like say if you have the number 13, nothing divides into 13. 2, 3, 4, nothing divides into 13. And the truth kind of feels like that to me. Nothing, it doesn't divide down any further. It just is. It just feels like it's all of these things are not so easy to put into vocabulary because there's this kind of a felt sense to it. And it's almost as if the words actually are getting in my way because they have another meaning. They have a localized meaning that we can read about something and we can think we know it when we really don't. Someone told me that they didn't really need to go and get a hug from Amma because they've done a bit of Indian dancing. And it was like, Not the same thing. Not the same thing. Um, so for me, truth is,
I need to.
it's like that which cannot be divided down any further.
Mm.
We can't even really exactly talk about it. We can, it's like, it's almost like everything we can talk about is a step away from truth.
Mm.
Truth is like something we will feel. Like I can talk to you all day long about how delicious water is and how good for you water is. We can talk about it, but without drinking water, you can't really know water. And for me, truth is something like that. So it's not something that can be spoken, it's something that's experienced in the same way that we experience a glass of water. It's just so simple. Again, when I talk about love, it feels like it's a little bit messy because we think we know what we mean by love. I love my mom, I love chips, I love this, I love my clothes. But for me, love is why we're here. Like that love is what we're made of. Love is, all of these things are only words unless they can be felt. So let me see if I can find a way to express them with a feeling. Just give me a sec. It's almost like love is the most obvious thing in the room, and so we don't notice it. Like we don't notice the air unless there isn't any. Love is just something that is completely natural to all life, all life. Even like a plant growing in the desert. Love is fundamental, foundational. It's without love, why would we even get up in the morning? What would be the point? Love, life, truth, they all feel like the same thing to me, really. Like maybe slight different shades of the same thing. And yet none of them, as I'm speaking about them, none of them can really be spoken about. And I feel like with these kind of things, when we've experienced something and then we hear the words about it, we go, yes, exactly. When you hear something that resonates with you, it's like it's put into words what you've felt. But if you had heard those words without having that feeling, I don't think it would take you to that feeling. I think it's like our curiosity. It's like something pulls us. I would say that, for example, for you with your mastery project, the project it itself is pulling you. It's not like you're not chasing something. I'm sure there are moments where you are chasing something within it, but the overarching thing is something captured you. It kind of went, Anya, come here. You were pulled towards it. And I feel with spirituality, we're pulled towards it. If you think about what life has the capacity to do, we can be absolutely on our deathbed. We go to the light and then we come back. We can come back. I've heard so many, I mean, it's not common, but there was enough stories about it that life can make us live or die according to some mechanism. Life can, life can put us in exactly the right place to meet the perfect person for us, or it can keep us far away from the person. It's like life can do anything, is my point. And if life can do anything, why are we not all awake? We think that we are individuals, and there is some truth in that, of course. But rather like a snowflake, if we look at snowflakes, if each snowflake had an ego, it would be experiencing itself as an individual snowflake. But it doesn't have an ego, so it's just a pretty pattern of snow. But it's our sense of I that separates us. Otherwise, we would just feel like we were drops of life, and that life was taking us here, life was taking us there. There's a kind of an essence to us, which is the thing that I was talking about in the beginning, the constant, a certain flavor, a certain Anya flavor, a certain Avanti flavor. But apart from that, life is just happening all the time. There's a movement towards, there's a movement away. There's just constant a dance going on all the time. And so it feels to me that if life wanted us to all wake up, we would all wake up. And so we would see the truth, we would see love, we would be aware of this. And I feel that there's a purpose in not being aware of these things.
Yeah.
It's to explore them. It's like when we truly, truly know something, we have to explore it in order to know that we know it. So like a baby is born in complete unity. A baby has no sense of separation between itself and its mother. It doesn't experience a difference. It doesn't, when its mum's not there, it feels hurt, it feels lonely, but it doesn't notice that, it doesn't realize that it is a separate thing from its mother. And then we come to, it's like we build ourselves up, we develop the ego. A child becomes, this is mine, me, mine, I. We develop all that. And then that starts to fall away, that drops away. And it feels like that which calls us, that which, like, not everyone wants that to drop away, but that which calls us, so that which calls me to want to know what's looking through my eyes, to want to know the truth of things, it is calling me. I'm just like a little drop of rain. I'm so small and insignificant in relation to life that if life wanted me to wake up, all I have to do is kind of keep going, yeah, I still want that, yeah, I still want it. And its movement draws me. So for you, it's similar for you with mastery. It's like there's a movement, there's something that calls you to it. And that might change over time. It would certainly develop over time. And it's like it's an exploration for you. And so for me, those three subjects, I feel that they're just, I don't feel that there's anything particularly significant about those subjects. It just feels to me like as you go up the pyramid, they're the things that become important. Like if you're absolutely starving, the thing that's important is somewhere to sleep and your next meal, for example. It's just, that just feels like the next place in my personal evolution, and it's something to explore, not something that I would say I know it. I do know it, but it's like in order to know that I know it, I have to explore it.
Avanti, does it mean that you have received maybe in life your biggest lessons in those three areas?
I think the biggest area has been love. Yeah, I think love by far the biggest. What it is to not be loved, what it is to be loved and not know what to do with that love, what it is to not even think about it in terms of another human. What is it to be loved? What is it to recognize love all around me? It feels like, but I have a feeling that that's true for everybody. I'm not absolutely sure. I want to find out. I'm curious about it. Whether love is what moves everybody, whether love is the foundation of everything.
Thank
So
you.
okay, darling. Okay.
Have a great evening. Mwah.